And what got you interested in the like the beauty pageant? Because you participated and won the Massachusetts contest. And what was your experience like? Was that just something you were like, I want to do this, or did you accidentally do it, or how did that go?
Yeah, so it's a very interesting story. In a sense, it was accidental. So imagine we're gonna go back 20 years, right?
Mhm.
Um, right around the time of 9/11. And, at the time I was a student at MIT and I didn't watch TV really. I just, studying, walk to class, do my thing, walk home, read my books. My parents, I remember, called and said, you should really be paying attention to the news. So I said, okay, fine. So I went out and I bought a TV tuner for my computer
Mhm.
and was watching TV one night with a group of just friends in my room. And we were, funneling through the channels. And sure enough, the Miss America pageant was on.
Mhm.
And they all sort of turned to me and like, you should do this. And I said, nope.
Yeah.
Mostly just that was never, I wasn't into that as a kid. That wasn't my thing. And they said, no, no, really, like you should do it. You have a talent, you love music. Um,
Mhm.
why not? And so they just really kept like bothering me. Um, Finally, they signed me up.
Mhm.
So they signed me up to participate. And so, you get this email. It says, "Oh, congratulations, you've been registered as a contestant, and show up on such and such a date for this local pageant." And the way it works is you have to compete at the local level first, and
Mhm.
win at the local level, and then you go on to the state. If you win the state, of course, you go on to the nationals. And I finally thought, okay, you know what? Nobody's going to leave me alone until I try this. And I was a little curious too. So, they give you a list of what you're supposed to bring. And at the time, I owned one black suit, one black dress, one black one piece Speedo swimsuit. So I'm like, okay. So I took all my stuff and I went and fully expecting that I would show up and, who are these other girls anyway?
Mhm.
Who were they? And of course, this is Massachusetts, so
Yeah.
you've got, people from all the Ivies, all the
Mhm.
schools competing, and each one looked flawless, presented really well, was well educated. And suddenly I'm thinking, uh-oh, this is not what I thought it was gonna be.
Yeah.
And so I went through, when you're brand new, you just have no idea what you're doing.
Mhm.
So you go with the flow and do this. Okay, so I went and do this. And remember, I walked into my interview and nobody had told me. I was also contestant number one, which makes things even more entertaining because I had to go first. And when you don't know what you're doing, it's always kind of funny when you have to go first. I walked into my interview and I was just standing there. You're supposed to introduce yourself. You have, at least then, I think the rules might have changed, but 30 or 40 seconds to just introduce yourself. And
Mhm.
I didn't say anything because nobody had told me, and they didn't say anything. So we are just standing there. Finally, they said, are you planning on saying something? And
Yeah.
I have no idea that I was supposed to. This is my first time. So, but anyway, I did not win that.
Mhm.
But at the end of the night, one of the directors of the Miss Massachusetts Fund actually came to me and said, "You need to do this again. Like,
Mhm.
your first time, you have no idea what you're doing. Now you know.
Mhm.
Try it again because I believe you could be Miss America."
Okay.
And somebody says that to you, and because at the time, I remember my parents who were, still in California, they called, "Well, how did it go?" And I was like, "Oh,
Yeah.
what a disaster. I had no idea what I was doing," and blah, blah, blah. And my dad said, "Well, is there anything you can learn from this? I mean, is
Mhm.
there something we can learn?" And it occurred to me that there was a lot I could learn.
Yeah.
I had very little in the way of public speaking skills. I didn't know how to dress and how to behave, and the program teaches you a lot of very important sort of social skills.
Mhm.
Being a MIT only child, I was very used to doing things alone by myself, and this really forced a different perspective. So, after that, I decided, I would try it again.
Mhm.
I joined Toastmasters, which is a public speaking sort of forum to get better at that. I decided to essentially work with a trainer to try to get in better shape. Um, just working on the social side, sort of smoothing out the edges a little bit.
Yeah.
And it was really, in many ways, I think it was really awesome. So, we talk about the importance of being able to go and do things that are outside of your normal comfort zone.
Mhm.
I encourage people, obviously my story is around the pageant, but whether that means, taking up a new sport or taking up a new whatever hobby, you
Mhm.
start out, you're not very good because that's just what happens.
Yeah.
You practice, you get better, and eventually it adds a new dimension to who you are and your personality and your background. And it really helps to build confidence
Mhm.
in that, at that point, you could say, well, um, if I really wanted to, I know how to dress up. I know how to get on a stage. I know how to present myself. I know how to,
Yeah.
without humiliating myself, and I think that's for me, especially now and what I do, it's extremely important.
Mhm. And, when you after you won Miss Massachusetts, did you go on to, uh, compete in Miss America?
I did.
And how is the, competition at the state level compared to the national level?
You know, so the state level, of course, is smaller,
Mhm.
because it's not on television or whatever else. But um, there's this, there's kind of this belief that pageant girls all hate each other and it's very competitive. And I never found that to be the case.
Mhm.
Um, Even at the state level, everybody was extremely supportive. There was never, I'm sure, there's people that say things and people are catty at times and all this stuff. But what's the difference? In normal life, people do that to each other.
Mhm.
I've never found that anybody was mean or rude. I always thought people were quite supportive. Um, at the nationals, it was very interesting. Um, Because you got to see just how different our country is. And I
Yeah.
think, it's an interesting conversation even to have now,
Mhm.
this moment in our history, uh,
Yeah.
that you have people who, we make judgment about who is good and who is bad and what is right and what is wrong.
Mhm.
Some people were just brought up a certain way,
Yeah.
and it's who they are, and they didn't necessarily know that was
Mhm.
what was right,
Mhm.
and it was a very different, you just got to see how different it was, right? So, I
Mhm.
grew up in California, so West Coast, came
Mhm.
out to school on the East Coast, and so my everything was very much based on that bicoastal perspective.
Yeah.
It was very normal for some of the girls from some of the other states. They were engaged to be married. They were 16, 17 years old. They were doing this pageant. This was like their last kind of thing, and they were going to go off, and that was going to be their life. And you had contestants who were going to med school. You had, contestants going to law school. You had all kinds of just different people.
Mhm.
You don't realize, again, because you're just so used to what you see every day as being normal,
Mhm.
that it is a very diverse and a very big country with all kinds of different stuff that, and so again, at the time, now if I were to go and do it again, I would be much less surprised,
Yeah.
I think much more objective.
Mhm.
At the time, I was still extremely opinionated, um,
Mhm.
and For better or worse. I vocalized a lot of those opinions at the time.
Yeah,
So was it, you know, uh, would I do it again? Yes,
that's
because
good.
again, from the perspective of self-improvement and
Mhm.
pushing on myself to do these things that I normally would have never done. After that, now every day it's like, well, I've never done that.
Yeah.
But I have to. So, okay, let's just try it.
Mhm.
And rather than fearing, like, oh, I don't want to do that because I've never
Yeah.
done it, then you'd never become an entrepreneur. Then
Yeah,
you'd never live life.
in a bubble.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
I think it's interesting. It is a very I don't want to say controversial, but it is in many ways a bit of a controversial part of my life that, sometimes people are like, I just don't get it. I don't get it. Well, there's interview, there's onstage question, there's talent, there's fitness. So the fitness side is always the subject of great confusion, though we go to the beach and we wear a swimsuit. So, I mean, to some extent, you get to pick what you're doing. You don't have to wear something insane. But these are the parts, and you have to stand on that stage and be judged by hundreds of people. And that's hard. So,
Yeah.
I give great credit to the girls who do this because it's not easy. It's not easy to put yourself out there. It's
Mhm.
not easy to be judged,
Mhm.
um, because it's so simple to sit in the audience and be like, why is she wearing that? Why is she doing that? Meh, 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 meh.
Yeah.
Yeah, you get up on that stage.
Yeah.
Go do it. It's not easy. So, give them some credit for trying and
Mhm.
for making an effort to improve themselves, in a forum that works. Not everybody has to do it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
there's a million ways to improve yourself.
Yeah. Well, it was nice interest hearing about that.